And so you would think, I mean, by logic, you would think that she would say, you know what, this just isn't working for us. I think that maybe we need to just completely pull away. We're going to disconnect anything that is going to lead us to more misfortune, mental misfortune. We're not going to look at our phones. We're not going to be scrolling the internet. We just need a break. Instead, she contacts the New York Times and says, you guys want to hear about my miscarriage? Hey, how are you? Welcome to another chapter of Revenge Review, where we're going over Tom Bower's revenge. And in this chapter, it's called The Jigsaw. This is a chapter that is starting us out on a whole sort of little series that's going to get us to Friday, where we're going to be talking about the Oprah interview. And as you guys know, I have been dying for the Oprah interview. Because for me, and I've said this last episode, that was really when I turned my attention to the Meghan and Harry story and was like, wow, that girl is a colossal liar, you know? And so for me, this whole week, I'm dying to get into this. Next chapter is called Netflix, and then the last one on Friday is going to be the interview. So we're all building up to that crescendo. This particular episode and chapter is going to be focused on how Meghan was trying to take all the little jacked up pieces of her story, blend them together into some kind of cohesive brand that people would be drawn to. And that's quite a task for her communications department, because she's got a lot on her plate that doesn't make sense. Some of it's very divisive. Some things she's got a lot she's got to cover. She's got a lot she's got to spin. So her people have their work cut out for her. It's a really interesting chapter. What I will say before I get into it is, because Meghan is desperately trying to take part in the political scene in America, and because she, like every actor, knows that if you can curry favor with certain political and have certain political affiliations, that helps your rising star. So she's no dummy, and she knows who she needs to go to. If you are a person who dislikes the discussion of politics, even politics where there is no bias, it's just the reporting of the politics that is in this book, this may not be the episode for you. If you don't like the talk of Meghan and her associations with the Democratic Party, or for whatever reason that bothers you, this is probably not the chapter for you. That we are not going to go on and on about it. It's not a super in-depth look at that association, but we do talk about it. So for whatever reason, anytime politics come up, even in whatever shallow and unimportant way, I always hear about it. And I don't understand that. And I don't understand why people would be surprised that this book would involve some political discussions, because Meghan wanted political affiliations. She needed those big names to help her climb up the ladder. So shouldn't surprise us when we have to discuss it. I'm not going to be discussing it in a way that is divisive, but if politics bother you in any way, then here's your trigger warning. Okay, let's get started on the jigsaw. Tom Bower writes, the branding of Meghan as an influencer benefited from her marriage to Prince Harry, obviously. That's like writing, the sky is blue. Despite the undemocratic overtone, the social justice warrior was trading as a duchess with a mission. To forge a composite image of a unique woman, her communication staff was tasked with slotting together the jigsaw pieces: compassion, victimhood, fake news, racism, feminism, and motherhood. Each piece of the jigsaw illustrated Meghan's suffering, right? Because Meghan's the most put upon person you've ever met. Just been one terrible situation for her after another. She had 3 people who were helping her with this. And one of the things that stands out to me about Meghan and Harry is the enormous amount of staff they have to get nothing accomplished. Every time I turn the page, I'm learning about somebody new. I mean, at this point, I'm not even going to bother to give you names, because they're just in and out of the picture, you know? And I don't understand how Meghan and Harry could have so many people working for them. And yet, like, you look at the Spotify deal. Why were there only 12 episodes? You know what I mean? It's like 12 episodes, and she had an enormous amount of people helping her. She had a producer. She had all these other people helping. She should have been able to put that sorry thing together on her very own. There shouldn't have even needed to be anybody involved. But the fact that with people involved, that's all she could manage, That's an aside, but this here is just some more people. 3 people she needs to spin her new tale. The communications group came up with a little slogan for them. Their slogan was, build compassion around the world. Why don't you build it at home and go talk to your poor dad? In true believers jargon, Schrimmer, one of the communication staff, explained that her employers offered diverse and open access to their work by engaging with global, specialist, and grassroots outlets. In the same vein, she spoke of Archwell's purpose to unleash the power of compassion to drive systematic cultural change. The trio were on a mission to spread Meghan's gospel. This line here that they were offering diverse and open access to their work by engaging with global specialists, I don't know if this whole move has just scrambled my brain and I've just gotten dumber. I can't even figure out what that sentence means. Because what are you saying they're open access to their work? First of all, they don't work. So I'm not sure what we have access to. But then second of all, that's not true at all. They're extremely cagey about what they've been up to. It's all been cloak and daggers. I mean, their work that no one could get them to do for years, then they finally, paw together some episodes that were boring as all get out. What open access do we have? And do they think that global is like abracadabra? Like, this is like a magical word to them. Whenever they can fit in the word global, they're over there saying it. I don't understand what they mean by that term. I know that they mean the globe, but what in their mind when they say the word global, what actions are they taking to support the use of that specific word? How are they global? Because he's from England and she's from America? Is that is that the grand scope of it? I don't understand. The curtain raiser was the most powerful women's summit, a Fortune magazine conference. Okay, so here Meghan, she's going to introduce her new self, and her new self is heavily styled on she's a victim. Really, that's the crux of the thing. I am a victim. You've never met anybody as devastated as I have been by bullies, by trolls, by the Queen. Everyone hates me, and for no reason. I'm the nicest person you'll ever meet. Although virtual because of COVID, tickets cost $2,426 each. I would pay $2,426 to not have a Zoom call. I cannot imagine anybody who'd fork that money over. In my wildest dreams. And because what is y'all gonna send me a gift bag? Is there gonna be something that I get out of this? It's like, at least if I had gone to an event, we might have eaten. What am I paying $2,000 for? I just can't even imagine. Describing herself as the most trolled person in the entire world in 2019, which is an exaggeration because Adele and Gemma Collins were also being attacked at that same time. She recited how abuse had left her isolated and othered. Well, that was a word of that year, wasn't it? Othered. Being the victim of racist antagonism that was manufactured and churned out was, she said, almost unsurvivable. Well, but Meghan, see, the problem here is that you continue to read the unsurvivable trolling. Just turn your phone off. Make it so you're not looking at that stuff. You don't have to know. Nobody in your staff is going to come running to you, fluttering magazines in your face and scrolling the phone in front of your face so you have to see it. This doesn't actually have to be your reality. You can live a very lovely life, untethered and unattached to what's going on in social media, if you want to. And I tell you what, I'd love to live the unsurvivable life that means Montecitos in my future. At the heart of Meghan's argument was the unfairness of her mistreatment, because she said Facebook and other social media platforms always carried hate-filled posts after she spoke about mental health, well-being, and gender equality. While her statements were obviously true and not controversial, the reaction to her on social media was callous, poisonous even. I'm cautious about putting my family at risk. What ended up inflammatory in people's interpretation, that's so big, you can't even think about what that feels like. All right, well, Meghan, here's the thing though. If speaking is so harmful to you, then maybe just don't speak for a while. Like, maybe truly, if you're like, the world is on fire and I don't know how to put the fire out, then retreat from the forest fire of the world, right? Like, don't go running amongst the flames and saying, I'm burning, I'm burning. Get away from it. So, and Tom Bauer continues to make that same point. He says, using phrases which viewers of the Netflix documentary The Social Dilemma would find familiar, she advocated to the conference, stop hate for profit. The world's biggest company, she urged, should stop advertising on Facebook until founder Mark Zuckerberg tackled hate speech. Her criticisms were somewhat undermined by denying that she read any social media. For my own self-preservation, I have not been on social media for a very long time. I've made a personal choice to not have an account. I don't know what's out there, and in many ways that's been helpful to me. All right, well, Meghan, here's the problem. If you don't know what's out there, then how do you know the trolls are coming after you? If you don't know what's out there, then how do you know that you should be offended, upset, and emotionally distraught? You know the prescription, yet you refuse to take it. You know, if I don't look on Facebook, if I don't look on Instagram, if I don't watch, all the YouTube videos about me, I can live a happy, well-adjusted life. But I'm not going to do it. Just like I know I should be the good that the world wants to see, but I'm still going to, mistreat my dad, sue people over nothing, spit in people's face, spill tea in other folks' faces. I'm going to use the F word on my wedding day in a beautiful ceremony. I'm going to ruin it because I just can't stop running my mouth. There are problems that Meghan knows need to be handled. The ironic thing is she knows the solution, yet she continues not to do it. And ultimately, I think it's because she's just lazy. It's even more upsetting, though, than just Meghan reading all this stuff. Like, she says, oh, there's all these trolls after me. Oh, it's all so terrible. I can't get a breath of fresh air. It's almost unsurvivable. But then we know she's reading them, even though she denies to us that she's reading them. But worse than that is the fact that not only is she reading them, while denying she does, but she is playing with social media. At the same time, she says it's the greatest evil known to mankind and we need to stop hate for profit. She and Harry are over there on their website. They're over there making YouTube videos. They're over there posting this, that, and the other all over the place. If the internet is the problem, why are you putting more content out? Meghan had built her platform on social media. That's how anybody who knew her at all happened to know her. I mean, apart from her little gig on Suits, she was known because of the TIG and her Instagram. And between the TIG, Instagram, and Twitter, she had collected for herself 3 million followers, which is not nothing. And so she may have a lot of negative things to say about Instagram and Twitter and all of these social media platforms now. That's how she became famous. So now that she's climbed up the ladder, she wants to cut the legs out from all the other people who are going to try to use those same platforms to gain some kind of fame and even just to make a living. She's managed to scale up the ladder, but now she doesn't want anybody else to make it up the ladder. Regardless of that fact, she and Harry can complain all day long that the internet is after them, but Harry's over there using the internet. On Mental Health Day, he goes out there and says, showing vulnerability in today's world is a strength, he posts. On that same website, Meghan had posted a message from herself as the Duchess of Sussex, commiserating with the trials of their followers during the COVID lockdowns. Nobody wants to hear about how hard you have it at your Montecito mansion with your 14 bathrooms, your 9 bedrooms, your tennis courts, your pool, your child's playhouse, your guest house, your acres and acres of lawn. Spare us how hard you have it during this lockdown. But she wanted to say, we recognize the unique perspectives throughout which different communities view the world. And though this is a time of unprecedented challenges and polarization, our communities have the capability to deliver solutions that will build a better future for all. That doesn't help anybody. Like when you are in lockdown, your grandmother's dying in the hospital and you can't go see her, nobody wants to hear your little take on our communities have the capability to deliver solutions that will build a better future for all when your grandmother's dying and she's dying alone. Save it, Meghan. She had added in a YouTube address from Montecito on International Day of the Girl that the COVID lockdown had allowed the Sussexes to enjoy really good family time. That was everybody's little caveat to make themselves feel better. We're having a great time as a family. Also, only a desperate influencer would realize that it was International Day of the Girl. I have never even heard of that day. But of course, Meghan probably got it all jotted down in her little calendar. Make a video for International Day of the Girl. All right, well, Meghan and Harry are only opposed to the internet when other people are using it. But when it's them, they've got no problems. But it gets worse than that, because Meghan's whole thing is that the newspapers won't stop invading her privacy. They won't stop getting out of her face. They won't stop commenting on everything she does. She can barely function in the world because she's just so anxious all the time that somebody's going to come after her kid, or, cause Harry, some more of his mental distress. And so you would think, by logic, you would think that she would say, you know what, this just isn't working for us. I think that maybe we need to just completely pull away. We're going to disconnect anything that is going to lead us to more misfortune, mental misfortune. We're not going to look at our phones. We're not going to be scrolling the internet. We just need a break. Instead, she contacts the New York Times and says, you guys want to hear about my miscarriage? She writes an article all about her miscarriage, using the whole COVID lockdown as a way to, she sees this as a way of connecting with others. I'm going to connect with all of you. You guys are all going to begin to like me better because I've had this miscarriage in these unprecedented times. I'm trying to deal with my miscarriage. So she sees this as an opportunity to become more likable. Meghan's already used the birth of her first baby as a time to have a baby shower and have a big networking party. So does it surprise me that she would use the miscarriage tragedy to her benefit? Not one whit. 6 weeks later, after the Most Powerful Women Summit, where she had started out her whining and complaining officially, she revealed in an article for the New York Times that she had suffered a miscarriage in July. Under the headline, "The Losses We Share," Meghan described how she felt the first pain while changing Archie's nappy. I knew as I clutched my firstborn child that I was losing my second. Hours later, she was holding Harry's hand in the hospital. I felt the clamminess of his palm and kissed his knuckles, wet from both our tears. I tried to imagine how we'd heal. Okay. I have a couple of things to say. The first one is, people who monetize their miscarriages are a unique group of desperate. That's got to be the lowest of the low. When you're looking to curry pity and likes and favorable attention because you just lost a child, like Meghan, all you ever talk about is how people are in on your business and how you can't just live your quiet life. You didn't want anybody to see the face of your first child. You claim that you and Harry had a secret wedding because you didn't want to share that with the world. Yet when you lose your second child, you want to rush over to the New York Times and tell every little detail of the loss? That's incongruent with every statement you've ever made about your desire for privacy. If she suffered a miscarriage, I am super, 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 super sad for her. That is so hard. I've never had a miscarriage, but I can't imagine a more disappointing and devastating loss than to happily be expecting a baby and then to suddenly lose it. My heart just breaks for every mother who's ever had experienced that. Just devastating. But I've spoken to many people who have had miscarriages, and I just wonder here where Meghan's like, I just tried to imagine how we'd heal. I just was wondering, when you were in the hospital losing your baby and hoping against hope that the doctors can stop whatever is happening and praying that this might not really be happening, and are you already so far past the current tragedy that you're always like, okay, how are we going to get over this? How are we going to move on? How are we going to forget all this happened? I don't know, maybe that's just me being unduly critical, but so many of the things that she talks about, like when they describe the birth of their children, Harry's description of the birth of their children was so weird and misaligned with any kind of birth story I've ever seen or personally have experienced, that it was almost like, have you guys ever had a kid in real life? Or, are you guys just describing what you think it's like to have a kid? And this sort of kind of has that same feel to me, where she's trying to write about what it is to experience a tragedy, but maybe she didn't really experience it. Or maybe she did experience it, but she's trying to write emotion as somebody who is well and properly adjusted would experience that trauma. I don't know if this reads weird because she's really didn't go through it, or she just doesn't actually feel the way normal people feel. I'm not sure. Tom Bauer says, to some, her newspaper article was an outright invasion of her own privacy. To others, she blessedly breached a taboo. So some people felt like, why in the world are you writing about it? Other people were relieved that she would do it, thinking, oh, this is so generous and gracious of her to come out and tell her story, and would that more people were like this. I feel a ways about this. I have no problem if people want to come out and share the fact that they had a miscarriage. I think that is a good thing. I think that more people need to know that the pain and the loss and the devastation that they feel has been shared by other people. If a person wants to talk about their miscarriage, that's up to them. You talk about it if you want to. But with people like Chrissy Teigen, who comes and takes pictures of herself in the hospital while she's having a miscarriage, that's weird. People like Meghan, who, as soon as they have their miscarriage, run to the New York Times and be like, y'all want a story about my miscarriage? That's weird. If you want to share with your friends and family what happened with the baby, or they're all wondering how you're doing, and so you post about it or whatever. I can't judge everybody's motives. But for these big celebrities who want to come out and make a big splashy scene and be like, please feel sorry for me, that's weird. Now, I will say that Meghan's article in the New York Times is way less weird than Chrissy Teigen, who had a film crew up in that hospital so that everyone could see her and her husband crying over their baby. I mean, do you have to document that? Are you for real right now? What is wrong with you? And even if you wanted pictures of your baby, I actually do understand that. I'm not saying that that's wild, because this is your child. You've lost your child. If you want pictures of the baby, by all means. But the sort of dramatic, cinematic element of all of those photos, the need to put those out into the world so that other people could be like watching you as you were grieving the death of this baby, and it's like these really, really, really upsetting images. It's just like, that's not for the world though. That's for you and your husband. That is like your private moment. The loss of your child was your private moment with your husband. Anyway, sorry, this is not a book about Chrissy Teigen, but as long as we're talking about people who need to get a grip on sharing their miscarriages with the world. Again, I don't have a problem if people want to talk about the truth of their life. I'm not saying everybody needs to be quiet and shut up. But what I am saying is, how are you using what's happening in your life? Are you using it to exploit those around you for clicks and money? Or are you really trying to bridge a gap with other people? These are all such strange questions that we do have to grapple with now that we have social media. How much do you share? And how much should you just have some real people in your life that you can tell things to, and you don't have to catalog your life for the world on a computer? I don't know. These are questions we have to ask ourselves. Anyway, Meghan said that losing a child, she wrote to her sympathizers, means carrying an unbearable grief, experienced by many but talked about by few. To add a sting to her revelation, she blamed the miscarriage on the pressure of going through a lot, specifically her legal action against the Mail on Sunday. You remember the last chapter that we did, it was all about her legal battles with the Mail on Sunday and how bad that case was and how horribly it was going. But she was really couched and sort of shielded from the reality of how bad things were going in England with that case, because her lawyers in California were patting her arm, being like, it's going to be okay, we got this, But they didn't. As far as when she miscarried that baby, she was under the false assumption that she was going to win that battle. So now on the other side of it, now that she's writing this article for the New York Times, she's lost the case, it didn't go well. Now she can say, my body miscarried the baby because I was under so much stress, thanks to the media. She says, well, she uses the media to tell her story. And that's all well and good for her to say that now, but the reality is that's not what she thought during the miscarriage. During the miscarriage, she thought she was going to win. So she's just going back and rewriting history and replaying the facts and retelling you the story and, resettling the narrative for you. The revelation of her miscarriage was accompanied by a reference to her royalty, an essential element of the jigsaw. She disclosed in the aftermath of her interview with Tom Bradby in South Africa, so memorable in her opinion because she posed as a mother, feminist, and advocate, the Queen and Charles had reached out to her, but no evidence was provided for her assertion. She just wants to remind everybody, I'm so close with the Queen and Charles that they both reached out to me after I said nobody had. Because that's the kind of relationship I have. I'm that kind of important. I'm not just your everyday, celebrity. I'm not just the dirt of Hollywood. I know a queen, and she asked me if I was okay. All right, well, the Queen had been asking if you were okay for a long time. You just didn't care that she was asking. All those pieces supported the key ingredient to Brand Markle, but there was one more key ingredient, and that was she needed to assert herself as a strong Democrat. Those were the people she needed by her side, because those are the people that are going to aid you in Hollywood. So on the eve of the fractious presidential election, in the midst of the COVID crisis, the Sussexes supported Joe Biden against Donald Trump. The president's low poll rating suggested his defeat. Keen to play a part in Trump's humiliation, Meghan enjoyed a virtual meeting with Gavin Newsom, California's Democrat governor. Must have been a real interesting meeting. Thereafter, she and Harry broadcast a message to Americans from their Montecito garden, celebrating their inclusion as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people on the planet. Meghan urged Americans to build communities of compassion and spoke about the most important election of our lifetime. In a clear anti-Trump appeal, Harry asked Americans to register to vote. As we approach this November, it's vital we reject hate speech, misinformation, and online negativity. Okay, I have just a couple things to say about this. First of all, I'm not surprised that they made it into Time magazine's 100 most influential people on the planet. The truth is, they themselves had done nothing, but everybody made them more important than they needed to be. To have left them off the list would have been odd, not because they have done anything that's all that important, but because the world made them important. The world gave them way more of a platform than they should have. But that aside, I think the most egregious thing about this entire part is that Harry has no business preaching to us about what we should do in our election. Regardless of how you feel about it, nobody wants a prince who's never been allowed to come out and have any kind of political expressions in public. He's never been able to take sides. So, it almost is like, well, what in your background has ever given you the right to come out and speak? But more than that, you're a foreigner. How dare you come to us and tell us how we ought to vote? You don't know anything about our politics. You are not somebody that I'm coming to being like, now who should I vote for again? Could you educate me about the choices? I just don't know. What do you think, Harry? It's like, how dare you come to me? You are new to our country, so you don't need to come up in here and start lecturing us about, don't forget to register to vote. If you want change, you've got to ask for it. Don't forget to vote Donald Trump out. It's like, regardless of how you're going to vote, Harry, if you even can, was he even a citizen at that point? I don't know. Is he even a citizen now? Regardless of any of that, you don't need to lecture us about how it's going to be. You just don't get you don't have the right to do that. You literally showed up on the scene 10 minutes ago. And now you're sitting in the mansion gardens to tell me how I need to get my act together to vote. Why don't you get your act together and get your ass back to your country? The Sandringham agreement for the couple to uphold the values of Her Majesty was broken. Obviously, he's not allowed to talk about politics. He had agreed to continue to act royal even though he was no longer part of the working royal family. But as soon as he gets there, he's over there blabbing, don't forget to vote out that misogynistic nightmare. Regardless of your feelings about Trump, we don't need Harry to tell us what to do next. endorsement of a political party was not acceptable for the royal family. On reflection, Harry's snub of Ivanka Trump during her visit to Buckingham Palace with her father in December had been clearly inspired by Meghan. Meghan had not appeared at that state dinner at Buckingham Palace for Trump. Her partisanship did not surprise the president. "I'm not a fan of hers," he said. "I wish a lot of luck to Harry because he's going to need it." The question was whether Harry would loyally abide by the other terms of the Sandringham Agreement and to the Queen, or would he adopt Meghan's attitude? Are we really asking this question at this point? I mean, he had no intentions of doing any of those things. He's just going to go through life doing his own thing. He's going to run his own program. The Sandringham Agreement was just the permission he had to leave. He probably doesn't even know what it says. Cut off from London's purse, the financial jigsaw piece became important. A podcast deal with Spotify was estimated to be worth between 18 million and 30 million pounds. Rumor estimated that the long negotiating contract with Netflix was worth $100 million. The Sussexes had agreed to produce documentaries and films to share impactful content that unlocks action. Their jargon's gonna kill me. I can't stand it. Approved by Ted Sarandis, the Sussexes' neighbor, who was head of Netflix content, the Sussexes' statement said more about themselves than the programs they would produce. Yeah, so they wrote out this little bit to let us know what we could expect. Our lives, both independent of each other and as a couple, have allowed us to understand the power of the human spirit, of courage, resilience, and the need for connection. Through our work with diverse communities and their environments, our focus will be on creating content that informs us, but also gives hope. As new parents, making inspirational family programming is also important to us, as is powerful storytelling through a truthful and relatable lens. There's that word again. Gotta watch out for those lenses. Might not be relatable. Gotta get a relatable lens up in here. Here's my problem, though. Why does everything they say sound like something that somebody would write who hadn't read the book? It's all just blah, 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 blah. Nothing they just said is going to tell me what they're planning on doing. By the way, inspirational family program. Would you ever plop your kid down in front of anything Meghan Markle had made? The real surprise here was the fact that Harry was willing to work with people who had made The Crown. Now, despite what you might think about The Crown, personally, I loved it. We all know, anybody with two brain cells to rub together, we know it's a dramatization. They're using real people's names and real stories, but there's a whole lot of extra going on in that show. And Harry had expressed disdain for it in the past, but now that there's a $100 million tag attached to it, he's hustling right on over. He can't wait to get his piece of the Netflix pie. It's all just so disgusting. It's also just so redundant. This is the thing that they always do. They have morals and ideals until suddenly there's money involved, and then they're like, how can I just do a little hop, skip, and a jump over my morals? Oh, I hated The Crown before, but now they're gonna give me some money? Cha-ching! Don't care anymore. Some wondered whether Harry even recognized the conflict of interest after he proclaimed in a broadcast, "Every single raindrop that falls from the sky relieves the parched ground. What if every one of us was a raindrop? And if every single one of us cared? What kind of world could we grow up in?" Harry was fond of using the raindrop metaphor in his speeches. I think the thing that I feel about Harry in all of this is I feel, honestly, a profound sense of sadness for him. Really, I feel like it's kind of heartbreaking that this guy who, and I'm not even being mean when I say this, simpleton. He is a simpleton. I really think if they did some cognitive neurological studies on him, I just don't know how he would do. I don't think he'd score very high. And I'm not being condescending when I say this. I really feel like something might not be 100%. And so you're watching this poor guy trying to run to keep up. He's just saying all the lines I tell him to say. And I think he's mean-spirited. I mean, you can be a simpleton and be mean too. He might be a mean simpleton. But there is a part of me that just feels bad for him because, it is so clear he's out of his depth here. The puppet master has him, hop, skipping and jumping and tap dancing for. But, he's just saying things. Only a poor dimwit would say every single raindrop that falls from the sky relieves the parched ground. What if every one of us was a raindrop and every single one of us cared? That's like the people, what if we only, we only use 10% of our brain? Well, I think we only use 10% of our hearts. What line is that? What movie is that from? That sounds like a real Harryism. Anyway, so Harry's coming out trying to play the part that's been assigned to him and trying to say all the right lines and trying to do all the right things. And he's been whipped up into a fury. And so he's just really upset. And he's just doing things now. He's just lashing out like a child having a tantrum. He's trying to hurt his family, which doesn't make sense because he started out hurting them first, you know? And so if they've had to draw boundaries around themselves because they have this abusive member of the family, is it their fault? Well, to continue to draw boundaries, it came that it was Harry's 36th birthday. And usually when a royal has a birthday, there are photographs that come out of them, and most of the time they're families. How can that happen now, right? They're nowhere to be found. Also, did they want to advertise Meghan, Harry, and the baby? No. So to solve this dilemma, they decided that they would take some photos of Harry from way back in the day when he was a kid, way back when people still liked him, way back when he was 3. So they released these photographs of 3-year-old Harry. All of them excluded Meghan, obviously. And the process of excluding Harry didn't stop there. I wouldn't even say that they were trying to make some great big stab at Harry. It's just the show must go on, right? And Harry's not around. So to highlight the COVID crisis, the Queen had visited Porton Down, Britain's secret science park. Seen for the first time in 7 months, she was accompanied by William. Well, she's not over there being accompanied by William to be like, look who I'm not being accompanied by. It's just, we got stuff to do. William, let's go. But that's not how Harry saw it. And to add insult to injury, at the Remembrance Day ceremony, he had rung them up and said, could you please lay a wreath for me? But his wish was rejected, which made him just rage against the palace officials. They had always tried to get in his way. But the reality is the Queen herself is the one who denied that request. And he would have known that. So he can be over here pointing fingers at the people he's not scared to point fingers at. But he never came out and said it was really the Queen who had done it, because he was scared to say that. Because he knows that, you want to talk about people who aren't holding up their end of the deal, Harry. I think you just need to go look in the mirror there. But this is the thing that's so annoying. He wants to have this big rant and he wants to rave all about how they don't care about him. But he also wanted to live as a private citizen. Which private citizen can ring up the palace and be like, hey, could you guys go lay a wreath at such and such a grave for the Remembrance Day ceremony? What are you talking about, Harry? You asked to be a private citizen. So now that you don't have all the rights and privileges that go along with being a royal, you signed the dotted line, my boy. Any suggestion from London that the Sussexes were excluded threatened their celebrity ranking in America. So that's their real problem here. Okay, you guys, we're about to get into a part of the story that just cracked me. It just cracked me up because it's so pathetic. So, no one's going to lay a wreath for Harry. So then he decides that, doesn't matter, I'll do it myself. Meghan, Mommy, can you help me? So Meghan decides, yes, Harry, I am going to help you. They were wrong to do this to you. And together, you and I, we're going to show everybody in the world how much we care about the veterans, the fallen. So they get together. Of course, they can't just do anything good without bringing a photographer. God forbid it. So they gather together some flowers and a staff member, and they waddle on out to some national cemetery in Los Angeles. And with the aide following, and of course the camera, they go to lay wreaths on 2 Commonwealth soldiers who happen to be there. Harry pins his little military medals, which honestly have no bearing anymore because he's been stripped of all his titles. Harry pins his little medals to his suit, totters out with his little card that says, to all those who have served and are serving, thank you. After they get enough photographs, they get back in the car. And those photographs were released for global distribution. Now, Harry claimed that he had not orchestrated a publicity stunt to reassert his abandonment by the royalty. He wasn't trying to highlight what they did. He was just trying to do a good thing. And they couldn't strip him of his birthright. They aren't going to lay a... You aren't going to
Lay a wreath for me. Doesn't matter. I can pin my medals to my chest, bring my own flowers.
Well, good, Harry. That's exactly what you should have done. You know, if you want to go and honor the fallen, go do it. As a private citizen, you have every right to do it. But you don't have any right to just call up the palace and say, hey, now go do my bidding. Sorry, you don't get to do that anymore. You're out. And for Harry to have to come out and take all these pictures and stuff, how is that not him trying to get back at the palace? If he just wanted to do the right thing because he wanted to honor the fallen, he could have done that silently on his own, even without Meghan. But I mean, it's fine if he wants to bring his wife. That's fine. But you need an aide to carry the flowers. You can't carry the flowers yourself. You're such a diva that you can't even carry your own wreaths to lay them on the grave. It's got to be this great big show. You will never sell us on the stupidity that this is not me trying to have some kind of publicity stunt to shame the royal family. Then what is it? Then what is it? Your birthright? Your birthright does not include you being able to tell people what they should do on Remembrance Day.
At the same time, Harry followed Meghan's lead into the most sensitive issues. Meghan had supported Joe Biden's government removal of gender identity from official statements. Making the terms mother, father, daughter, and brother unacceptable was part of the administration's policy to obliterate biological sex. Now, part of this problem for Meghan is just that it is, once again, not surprisingly, incoherent when it comes to what she personally stands on, right? Because she stands on, I am a woman. I am a feminist. I am a mother. All of these things that she uses to define herself will now no longer be relevant if that kind of language is obliterated from like the public conversation. If it is offensive to use the term mother, if it is offensive to define yourself as a woman in any sort of traditional way, then how can Meghan stand on that anymore? You know? And so many of the things that Meghan stands on, she's not looking to the end conclusion. It's just right now, how is this going to make me well known? Right now, how is this going to help me? Right now, how will this make my star shine brighter? But she's not thinking, how am I going to play this out in the long run? And part of that comes back to bite her, because in 2020, when we were seeing so much racial division, so much antagonism in the society, there were so many protests, there was so much anger and rage just flowing through the streets. The movement that Meghan had jumped on began to get stranger and stranger and more, and I mean farther and farther from like the middle ground where most people are comfortable functioning. So Meghan had jumped on this bandwagon, but it was starting to take off in a direction she knew was not sustainable for most Americans. Meghan's support for cancel culture included the censorship of her opponents like Trump on Facebook and Twitter. And it doesn't matter so much what you think about Trump. A lot of people in the center and even people left of center could see that saying that Trump could no longer speak on Twitter was problematic for free speech in general, right? Regardless of what you thought about him, that move is going to snowball, because what if next time what if next time it's your guy? You know, what are you going to do now? If the rule is when we don't like you, we can take you away and silence you. Well, what if it ends up being somebody that you don't want silenced? You know, if you can make those kinds of rules, if you can say free speech for all, but not that guy, how's that not going to come after you eventually? So people were starting to be like, oh, we might be getting into some dicey territory. But it got worse because though she had supported Black Lives Matter was moving in a more radical direction than maybe even she was willing to move in. Black Lives Matter proposed the cancellation of presidents like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln because they had owned slaves. Abraham Lincoln never owned slaves. So I don't think that's not a correct statement. But George Washington and Thomas Jefferson had. Others wanted to ban classical literature books because they were allegedly racist. For the moment, remembering that Harry's misstep and hers about the Commonwealth had exposed them to criticism, she resisted joining the extreme end of the movement. But the problem is, the race issue had become too important in their careers for her to ignore the reasonable debate. This is the problem that people often get in when they join a movement, not because it's their core belief system, but because they think that's going to bring favor to them. Because what you realize is, I'm never going to be woke enough. You're never going to be woke enough for the mob. There's going to be a point that you're like, okay, this is my line. I don't cross that. And the mob's going to come after you and say, yeah, but if you really cared, you would. Right? So now Meghan's just in a mess. And she can't back off of the things she said, but she can't necessarily go forward either. She's just going to make everybody angry. So what she has to just keep doing is saying, but I'm a victim, Don't come after me. I'm the victim. Ever since writing the Elle article in 2015 about her experience of race, Meghan had spoken as the victim of racism. Although she provided no specific evidence of suffering any personal disadvantage, she explained that after returning from Britain, she realized that America's racial tensions were devastating. She added, "It was so sad to see where our country was." After the murder of George Floyd in May 2020, she found a, quote, silver lining. Across America, the peaceful protests, people were actually owning their own role. It shifted from sadness to a feeling of absolute inspiration because I can see the tide is turning. In Meghan's opinion, the Black Lives Matter movement was a beautiful thing. She accepted BLM's arguments about white privilege and saddling whites with their guilt of oppression. Although critics labeled BLM as Marxists fomenting social discontent, Harry shared her opinion about white man's guilt. We'll get to Harry's opinion in a minute. It's hard to read this stuff now on the other side of BLM having been exposed as a complete and total fraud. And, now we read this stuff and it's like, it's kind of old news. I mean, it's not like a gotcha moment for Meghan because a lot of people thought BLM was a movement to get on the back of. Remember all the black squares all over Instagram? Everybody wanted to come out and show support, It was the thing to do. And so, you want to point a finger at Meghan and be like, how could you be so wrong? Well, how were so many people wrong about that movement? They were very clear about what they wanted. They were very clear about how they wanted to go about breaking things, though they seem to have no written solution for how to build it back once it was broken. There's a lot of things in our country that are messed up, that could be reorganized, rebuilt. But I don't know if breaking things without a solution is a grand plan. Right? That's what a child would do. But an adult comes in not to break down, but to figure out how can I take the pieces in front of me and reorganize them into something that is helping not just the few, but the many. Anyway, I mean, I'm not a politician, but it really seemed fairly obvious that BLM was just there to incite rage and violence and more social and racial unrest than it was in solving problems. Harry, though, because he's just poor thing, I mean, he just can't keep up in this kind of environment. He's literally just mimicking everything he's hearing. So he came out and he criticized white people, which I always find it so insufferable when white people come out and criticize white people. I'm like, you're damning yourself. Do you not understand what you're saying right now? I mean, what is your solution? If your take on white people is as they're terrible, horrible, evil, vindictive nightmares that are looking to wipe out anybody with any melanin in their skin, if that's what you think, how do you get out of bed in the morning? There's nothing you can do about the color of your skin, White Harry. So what are you going to do about that? Just coming out and repeating the same statements about how terrible white people are, that's gross. No, we're not. Yeah, there have been white people who've done bad things. There have been people of every color that have done bad things. Who are you at the heart? What are you about? What solutions do you have? But coming out and that's a zero help to anyone. Harry criticized a world created by white people for white people. And he specifically went after England. See, Harry and Meghan, having come from a country that never even owned slaves to a country that did have slaves, that in and of itself is ironic. But the fact that he now wants to come after England, what did England do about any of this? They didn't have anything to do with George Floyd. Why are they getting pulled into it? Harry wants to attack England, and he said in an interview for Montecito that England was suffering from structural racism. Institutional racism is endemic across society. White society produced bias with an effect on young people of colour. White Britons need to understand people of a different coloured skin. Even the way he is saying this is like somebody who doesn't really know what they're saying. I mean, it doesn't even feel like he believes any of this. Influenced by Meghan's experience, he added, when you go into a shop with your children and you see only white doors, do you think, that's weird, there's not a black door there?
white Britons benefit from racism.
It's too stupid. This is the problem with society. How can we exist in a society that is so dumb? It makes me feel frustrated because we keep talking about the same old things when we've solved that problem, but we're getting dumber on the subject. I'm tired of living in a world that is like, we could be having real, like, super interesting conversations right now. We have so much technology. We're such an interesting people. We have so much going for us. We've got so much diversity. There's so many interesting conversations to have. So many great books to be written. So many wonderful films to be made. So many incredible plays. So much amazing poetry. So many beautiful paintings. So many incredible sculptures. We have too many minds that are brilliant to be having conversations like this. We are too smart a people to be acting like this. We have come so far since the dawn of time. And this is the stuff we're talking about? My mind can't handle it. I'm so tired of how dumb everything is. All right, rant over. Harry's little comment about, have you ever seen a black doll in a shop? Well, it's not 1952. Somehow, Thomas Markle was able to rustle up a couple of black dolls so he could make a black and white family of dolls. And that was in the 80s or early 90s. It's kind of like, remember when Joe Biden came out, not recently, but like a couple years ago, and was like, where are all the black people on TV? And it's like, have you turned on the TV since 1951? There's some black people on TV. It's like, what are you talking about? And that's what I feel like Harry was like, have you ever seen a black doll in a shop? Yeah, quite a few of them. What are you talking about? He and Meghan are both so behind on the cultural topic. She's still trying to make like brilliant points that were made back in like 1975 about feminism. He's over there trying to ask you if you've ever seen a black doll. It's like, do you guys, are you in a time warp? What is happening? All right, well, he's not done talking about London. He said the real problem in London was it just wasn't sufficiently diverse. Son, London is your hometown. You don't know that 40% of the people in London are ethnic and have ethnic backgrounds? The mayor of, this cracked me up. Like I was dying at the end of this paragraph because he says there's no diversity in London. Well, let's start with the mayor. The mayor of London was the son of a Pakistani bus driver. His main rival in the last election was from a Jamaican family. The Home Secretary was the daughter of Ugandan Asian refugees. The Chancellor of the Exchequer was an Indian Hindu. The Foreign Secretary's Jewish father arrived in Britain from Czechoslovakia in 1938 to escape the Nazis. The government's business secretary and educational secretary were children of immigrants from Africa. But where's the diversity? There's none to be found in London. Trevor Phillips, a black commentator, criticized the Sussexes for styling themselves as the next generation of trailblazers in their introduction of a new TV show called Black History Month. The Sussexes TV program, wrote Phillips, made me want to look away. Not only was their program similar to Britain's Black History Month broadcast since 1987, but their video said less about Black Britain and more about a couple pleading, "Let me entertain you." Phillips' comments probably never reached the Sussexes. Negativity was banned in Montecito. It usually is, and wherever a tyrant reigns, nary can a negative word be said. As the family approached Christmas to be celebrated in Santa Barbara with David Foster and his wife, Catherine McPhee, Meghan was drawing ever closer to Oprah Winfrey. Oh, yes. Let's talk about how things are going with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah has always come out and promoted herself as the nation's leading cultural personality. She has 19 million followers on her social media, which is a lot. But if you are if you are the nation's leading cultural personality, I feel like 19 million might not be a whole lot, considering like one of the Kardashians has like over 50 million followers. Those employed on her program were tightly controlled by lifelong non-disclosure agreements to prevent the publication of any damaging insights. Yeah, she runs a tight ship over there. Probably, and these aren't my words, this is Tom Bauer's words, probably so that no one can provide information that Oprah earns her fortune by exploiting victims. The thing is that that's not exactly a close, held to the chest secret. All you have to do is tune into the way she interviews people. She loves the dirt, and she loves to keep poking at people's most vulnerable spots. Meghan's repeated homilies about suffering trolls, racism, and prejudice made her a natural guest on Oprah's program. I just had a really funny image that the troll was an actual troll that had come out of the woods at her. I must be tired. Oprah's seduction of Meghan was masterly, albeit an eager supplicant. Yeah, Meghan didn't really need to be, wooed and dined and all this, because she would have begged to be on Oprah's show had Oprah not extended the hand to her. This, though, is super interesting, and I wonder if this is a test that Oprah gave to Meghan to see how gullible Meghan was, or I guess to say it in a better way, to see how money hungry Meghan was. Oprah told Meghan that she wanted to work with Meghan, but then sort of like as a favor to her, would she consider investing in this new sort of startup. It was called Clever Blends, and it was a woman-led local company producing instant super lattes coffee. This was a pre-mixture of dried oat milk, coconut cream, monk fruit, mushrooms, and stress-reducing, focus-enhancing, antipathogenic herbs. Like Oprah, Meghan claimed to personally love the super latte's holistic approach to wellness. Then she also endorsed Clever Blend's $120 home ritual kit. And in this $120 little ritual kit, this is what you got. Sit down, guys. It's awesome. You got 2 super latte bags. Okay. And you got an everlasting star flower garland, which is just a string of decorative dried flowers. And then you got a 12-inch by 12-inch print of mushrooms with the message about gratitude on it. All for $120. Can you believe it? What a deal. Y'all, that is so clunky. Like, just what? Meghan invested a small amount in the fledgling company that employed 6 people. Someone help me understand this. I truly think this was a test of loyalty by Oprah. Like, will you invest in this obviously junk company, sending out their dried flowers and mushroom pictures? They're 12 by 12 pictures of mushrooms with a little message about gratitude on it. Will you do us that solid, Meghan? If you'll do that, then I'll know that you really are one of my supplicants. Because who in their right mind would invest in this company? There's like 1,000 different mushroom coffees on the market. I mean, super lattes, Clever Blends. Like, what even? I've never even heard of this. But the whole thing just sounds like it's just so lame. And this is like the time when Meghan went, this is not quite that bad. But remember when Meghan went on Ellen DeGeneres show, and then Ellen spent like the next 45 minutes publicly humiliating her, and Meghan, like, it was like supposed to be some kind of treat that Meghan got to be on the Ellen show, and Ellen totally used that show against her. That's what this sort of feels like. Not really, but it's almost like Meghan doesn't even know when people are making her into a clown. She's just going with it because Oprah told her to. This was the influence which Oprah Winfrey exerted as she prepared the biggest scoop of her career. She had penciled in the transmission date on the CBS network. All was set to launch brand Meghan in America. And we'll continue this story the rest of the week. Next episode will be on Wednesday, and it's called Netflix. So that whole chapter is all about the Netflix deal and how they were trying to get a hold on that. And then we'll finally get into the interview on Friday. But it's all leading up to it. It's all them trying to play chess in America. Oh, y'all, that was kind of a slog of a chapter. Only because I just feel like it just continues to be the same thing with them. They are manipulators. They are users. They are people who will trample on others. It's like, all right already. We get the picture. But I'm here for it because I got to get to that interview. I can't wait for Tom Bauer to pick apart that interview and tell us all the things that were completely wrong with it. Most of them I know, but I want to hear it anyway. All right, I will see you guys again on Wednesday and again on Friday. I am so excited about coming close to the end of this book. And on the next episode, I will officially tell you what we're working on with our next royal biography. So stay tuned for that. It will be coming out later this week. Also, because I'm not filming tomorrow, I just wanted to wish you a happy 4th of July. Please go have a great time with your family. I know you guys already have plans. You don't need me to tell you, but make the most of it. We live in a great country and celebrate the greatness that we have. Bye.